Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum for the contested races for the office of Illinois House District 83 and the 11th Congressional District. I'll give you a few minutes. Come on in and sit down, guys. My name is Patty Lackman, and I am the Voter Service Chair for the League of Women Voters of Central Kane County. The leagues hosting tonight's forum are the Aurora Area League and the Central Kane County League. Contested races are when someone has a direct opponent on the ballot. Because this is a primary election, many of the candidates will not have a direct opponent until the general election in November. It should be noted that the League of Women Voters has an empty chair policy, which prohibits a forum with only one candidate for a position participating. For those candidates who have a direct opponent on the ballot for the primary and have agreed to participate, they will each get up to 3 minutes to outline their platform because their opponent is not available. Today's forum is being live streamed and filmed by my friend Andrew Van Meter from our local cable access television station, BATV. It is live on BATV's YouTube station 1017 and will be posted on the websites of the local leagues participating and on the Illinois Voter Guide. Our moderator this evening is Barbara Young. She is a member of the League of Women Voters of the LaGrange area. She is a partner in the Chicago law firm of Golan Christie Tattaglia LLP, where she practices in the areas of business law, bankruptcy, and commercial litigation. Barbara is the founder of Equal Pay Day Chicago, an active member of many women's rights organizations, and a former commissioner of the Park District of LaGrange. Welcome, Barbara. Thank you for moderating this forum.
Thank you, Patty. Welcome to the Candidate Forum for the Democratic candidates for the Illinois House District 83 and the 11th Congressional Federal District. This forum is being sponsored by the Leagues of the Women Voters of Central Kane County and the Aurora area, and I want to thank them for all the hard work that they put into planning tonight's event. As Patty indicated, my name is Barbara Young. I'm a member of the League of the Women Voters of LaGrange, and I'm honored to be the moderator this evening. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes candidates or parties for any office. The League is not affiliated with any political party. The League's purpose is to promote civic responsibility through the informed and active participation of citizens in government and civic discourse. Providing opportunities to meet candidates is a major mission of the League, so voters can become better informed about the issues facing their community and to become better acquainted with the candidates running for office. I thank you, the voters, for coming tonight, and I also encourage you to talk to your neighbors and friends so that they can watch the program. The format tonight is a forum, not a debate. Candidates are expected to accurately represent the facts, and their responses reflect their own views and opinions. The League of Women Voters is not responsible for the accuracy of the statements made by the candidates. It is the responsibility of the public, news media, opposing candidates, etc., to fact-check statements made by candidates if necessary. The candidates have agreed to abide by the rules set forth prior to this forum. All candidates attending tonight have signed and returned the ground rules by the deadline established in the invitation. These rules specify the format, time limits, broadcasting of the forum, and other rules related to the conduct of the forum. The candidates will begin in alphabetical order with their 1-minute opening statements. Then we're going to alternate the order in which they answer questions, and they'll also have 1 minute to answer each question. After the question portion of the forum, each candidate will have 1 minute for a closing statement. Again, continuing in the alternating pattern. A member of the league will be acting as timer, and it's up to me to enforce the time limits. Candidates, the timers will let you know when you have 30 seconds left and when you need to stop. I will let you finish that last sentence, but that's it. To ensure that questions for tonight's forum represent a balance of topics, a panel of experienced members of the League of Women Voters has reviewed the questions submitted for appropriateness and to avoid duplication. There will be people walking around collecting questions, and there are note cards, so if anybody wants to put forth an additional question to be reviewed, you can do that. Finally, I want to say how much we appreciate the candidates who are not only willing to serve in office, but who have agreed to be here tonight to share their ideas and their goals. So with that, we're going to get started. So the first session here, which will be approximately between a half an hour and 45 minutes, depending on the number of questions put forward, are the candidates for the 83rd District of the Illinois House of Representatives. We have two candidates, Arad Boxenbaum and Matt Hansen. And we'll now begin with candidate Boxenbaum with his 1-minute opening statement. So welcome.
Yes, thank you all for being here. Thank you to the League for holding this forum. My name is Arad Boxenbaum. I'm a Democrat running for state representative in Illinois' 83rd District. I'm the vice president of the Geneva Library Board. I'm a longtime gun violence prevention activist. I've worked with 4 members of Congress, and I currently serve on the Kane County Climate Action Implementation Team. I'm running because we need active Democratic leadership in this district. We need a full-time legislator who is ready to fight every day to protect a woman's right to choose, to fight for stronger and smarter gun laws, to fight to protect our environment and our natural resources. And I'm very proud to announce that I've knocked almost 17,000 doors since June. So I am putting in the commitment that we need as a candidate, that we need in Springfield as a representative. So thank you very much.
Candidate Hansen, your 1-minute opening statement.
Good evening, and thank you for accommodating my service time in Springfield today and rearranging it so I could be here. I'm Matt Hansen. Welcome to the 83rd District of Illinois. This is my first term as your state representative. I look forward to returning to Springfield this upcoming November after the general election to continue the work that we've begun. This district is very diverse in all of its responsibilities to our constituents. We have municipal partners that have different needs. We have schools and park districts that need their respective funding. And we'll continue to work on responsible budgets that allow for each of these entities to find the best programs, the best programming that their constituents need, and we'll do it with compassion too. We will always protect those that need the most help. We will always fund education. And I don't know if he's waving at me. We'll look out for those that need the most help. That's our first and foremost primary in Springfield, and it'll be mine too.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to move into the questions. So question number 1, and this one will be for candidate Hansen. And if you ever need me to repeat a question, just let me know. So the first question is, as District 83 representative, what policy or legislative initiative would be your top priority?
It all begins with a budget and finding all the things that fit into there. That said, it's about us, and safety means different things for different individuals. We need safe schools, we need safe communities, we need to make sure that those that are responsible for our safety have the resources that they need. There are different ways to do that, and it starts with talking to the people that are looking for safer communities and safer schools. It also pertains to those that, again, are responsible for protecting us.
Okay, candidate Boxenbaum, what would be your top priority?
Absolutely. Through communicating with voters at the doors, it's very clear that the number one issue in this primary and the number one issue for the general is the right to choose. I'm a strong supporter in the right to choose. I'm very proud to be 100% a pro-choice champion, and I believe that in 2026, voters should have the opportunity to enshrine the right to choose into the state constitution. I believe that looking at other states, such as Ohio, that is one of the best ways to ensure that these essential human rights are protected, enshrined into the state constitution. On top of that, I believe that we need to reduce access, reduce barriers that are preventing access to healthcare, especially reproductive healthcare. We need to reduce the cost of healthcare. We need to increase the amount of people who are insured in this country.
Okay. Question number 2, and we're going to begin with candidate Boxenbaum. What type of support, including monetary support, should the federal government provide to Illinois to help with the migrant crisis? What programs and services should Illinois provide to migrants and the communities where they live to help them assimilate into Illinois communities?
Absolutely. First and foremost, there needs to be funding to provide adequate temporary shelters for these migrants. There needs to be, not just in the city of Chicago, but in the collar counties. We see this. Governor Abbott is using these people as political pawns and sending them into our communities, and they're not receiving the resources, essential needs in Texas, nor in transport. So we need the funding to ensure that these people have access to food and water, have access to the medical care that they need and that they are constantly being denying. In addition to funding, I also believe that the federal government needs to step in and prevent Governor Abbott from sending these people without their consent to the state of Illinois and to the city of Chicago. This is the city of Chicago. From there, I do believe that we need to overall ensure that there is proper funding for future sheltering beyond temporary as we put these people on a pathway towards full documentation and hopefully full citizenship way, way down the line, along with the letter of the law.
Okay, candidate Hansen, your thoughts on the immigration problem?
It can be considered a problem. It can also be a blessing too. All of us came here by some means at some point in time, a long time ago. Make no mistake, this is a federal problem that Illinois needs to be a part of in terms of helping those that have arrived here, as well as getting federal aid to aid those almost 20,000 that are here right now. Illinois has already committed almost $150 million to the city of Chicago and their resources there, and finding out how they're spending it and where it's being spent is a start. The governor presented his budget to the Senate and the House yesterday, and a lot of you have already reviewed that. And there's an additional, in his proposal, I believe $180 million committed to that. We need to find out how it's being spent. And as it's spent properly, making sure that the folks that are arriving here from other countries are, first of all, they've been processed and entered here so they can enter the workforce. We have private sector companies, we have public sector companies that want to integrate them and get them into full-time housing.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Hansen, now we're going to switch to talking about the pension shortfall. And the question is this: given that there is no evidence that Illinois' pension shortfalls are caused by overly generous benefits paid to teachers, firefighters, and police officers, what additional concrete steps would you support to address these shortfalls in a meaningful and productive way?
If we can figure that out in 1 minute, then we're all in the wrong building. First of all, we've restored our fiscal structure, our fiscal foundation in the state, so we can make more inroads on paying our pension debt down. We've done that in the past 2 budgets. Our 9 credit upgrades means we also have more flexibility in rearranging the debt that we have at any level. The way I liken it to is everyone carries some level of debt. And at any one moment, if everyone had all their debt called in at the same time, that would be problematic. But for now, it's an issue of managing it and continuing to pay that down. And should there be any pension reform discussions, the most important thing is that everyone who's a stakeholder in that, especially those that are entitled to those pensions, are at the table. A lot of people have great ideas, and they don't want to have all the right people in the discussions that'll be impacted by that. And as someone that actually has a federal pension as a railroad employee and also has contributed to Social Security over the years, I want to know that everything that I'm entitled to is coming to me. And so that's exactly where my position will be in any sort of discussions about reforms, is that the right people are there and everyone's going to get what they've been entitled to and promised to get.
Candidate Boxenbaum, your thoughts?
First and foremost, we need to protect people's pensions. That needs to be the number one priority. And it's a huge pipeline issue, especially in education, because the Tier 2 pension system is not adequate enough to ensure a well enough retirement. Our teachers are not paid enough. Their pension plans are not enough to survive, especially with the rising cost of living in this country. We need to continue to work to ensure that those pensions are fully funded and that we maintain the promises that we have made in regards to pension without weakening future pensions. As a young person in the state of Illinois with many friends who are going into education, the lack of adequate pay and the lack of a guaranteed adequate retirement is one of the reasons why we have a teacher shortage. And on top of that, educators in the state of Illinois do not receive a number of different retirement benefits, such as Social Security, and they are oftentimes not aware of that. So we need to make sure that they receive the Social Security that they are entitled to, and that we work to pay down our existing debts.
Okay, next question, and again, beginning with candidate Boxenbaum. What is your position on using Illinois tax dollars to support private, religious, and non-religious schools?
Absolutely not. I am a product of the Illinois public school system. I strongly support public school teachers. I hope to have kids one day, and I'm going to send them to public schools as well. We should not be spending state funding, public funding, on schools that do not adhere to state regulations. On top of that, these schools openly discriminate, not just against students, but in hiring. We need to ensure that, if Illinois is going to be an inclusive state, that our dollars go to inclusive institutions. We need to ensure that our money is going to making sure that LGBTQ students, that LGBTQ educators, as well as people of color in the state of Illinois, are protected. We also need to make sure that our curriculums are well-rounded, and we rarely ever find that in these private institutions. As long as they don't adhere to state law, to state regulations, and as long as they continue to willfully discriminate, they do not deserve public funding.
Okay, and candidate Hansen, your position on using Illinois tax dollars to support private schools?
That's unacceptable. Public tax dollars should go ahead and support the public schools that we have and those educators and the opportunities that are there ahead of them. We found that in looking very hard at some of the programs that I believe are referencing, a lot of those kids and those families were already sending their children to private schools even before those scholarships and those dollars were made available. That money can absolutely be reinvested into those dollars, should that program be sunsetted and disappear, can absolutely go back into our education-based funding model, and we've done that. We've added an extra $350 million each of the last 4 years, and that has made an impact in our public school system. There's always ways to find more resources, and there's always ways to do better, and we plan on doing that. There are some things that the governor proposed in his budget that I believe that both chambers and frankly both parties should agree with, and that is funding education at every single level, from pre-K all the way through higher ed and other opportunities that may be there vocationally, but no public dollars should go to private schools.
And sticking with candidate Hansen, question 5. In 2021, Illinois passed game-changing climate legislation, the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. What additional legislation would you support to enhance or expand the provisions of the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act? What changes or amendments would you support to remedy shortcomings in that legislation?
Without identifying the shortcomings that you're inferring, I don't know how to properly answer that. I will say that there are some very robust and very interesting goals when it comes to dates that have been assigned to some of the things we want to achieve. There are real challenges to getting to those, to reaching those goals on time. The city of Chicago has one electric bus. We told them in the assembly that you have to have all your buses electrified by 2030. We used to have 4 electric bus manufacturers, now we have 2, because we've decided that we know what it costs to build a bus, and we're going to say, here's what we're going to pay for a bus, and we put two of the 4 companies that make these around our nation out of business. There is a national, if not an international, crisis. We have a shortage of transformers. Transformers that could be the size of that lectern. It could be the size of this room. There aren't enough of those to go around. Our electrical grid and some of our utility distribution systems are terribly antiquated. We have a crisis with our natural gas lines that feed homes and lead pipes, and we need to figure out how to fund and also probably have a transitional goal setting for achieving those original goals.
Okay, Candidate Boxenbaum, do you have any thoughts on climate
Absolutely.
legislation?
Absolutely. Environment is a personal passion of mine, and I'm very glad to be the only candidate in this primary to not be accepting money from fossil fuel companies. I've not accepted a single dollar from them. And we have polluters in this district. So first and foremost, future legislation needs to run through this district. There is a HelloFresh factory in Aurora, right off of Orchard Road, that is polluting the air, and there are constituents in the district with lung issues that are struggling to breathe in their own homes. So we need a representative who is going to crack down on pollution first and foremost. On top of that, I strongly believe that we need to overhaul public transportation. Here in Kane County, we do not have adequate public transportation. We have a train line to and from the city, but then in between, it's not nowhere near enough. Certainly nothing that is readily accessible for lower income residents, and we need someone who is going to work to improve public transportation, work to improve the overall walkability of the community, make things a lot safer for bikers and for pedestrians.
Candidate Boxenbaum, next question. What past experience or educational opportunity has best prepared you for public service?
Absolutely. I used to work for Congressman Mike Quigley in his district office handling constituent services. A lot of people don't realize this. One of the biggest things that their representative does is constituent services. When you call your congressman, you call your state representative, fundamentally, you're not having a nice day. Something's going on with health care, immigration, issues like that. So having the compassion and the knowledge of what it's like to be on both ends of the phone, to be in need of help and to be providing that help. First, you need someone who is compassionate. They need someone who knows how to get the job done. Having worked in that environment, I know the right qualities and who to hire. I know the importance of it, and I know how essential it is. I've had people cry to me on the phone because their state representative did not handle any kind of constituent services, and it's really disappointing that for a very long time that was also the case in this district under Republican leadership and also under Democratic leadership, and we need to change that.
Candidate Hansen?
I will ask to hear the question again. I'm sorry.
That's okay. What past experience or educational opportunity has best prepared you for public service?
It's been public service, serving on the Kane County Board for a district outside of the current 83rd through the front end of the pandemic. That was really trying times. And we were in a position where most of us didn't know what was going to happen next. And so to have that obligation to meet the immediate needs of our responders and those in charge of our health department, there was real pressure there that I frankly didn't expect I would be confronting as a county board rep. And in our first term here in Springfield as your state rep, there have been other pressures and other experiences too. So make no mistake, there is experience that you can't plan for, but as you work through it and as you work with these different agencies, and that's one of the most important things about our district is the 10 municipalities, all those different entities, those townships, those school boards, those park district boards. How do you work within government that stays away from the hyper-political activity? And whether it be life experience in lobbying for public safety and infrastructure, past experience on the county board, and now with the term in Springfield, I certainly have the experience.
Right. Candidate Hansen, some of our constituents are concerned about the gun violence here in Illinois and want to know if you have any plans to try to stem that.
Well, thank you, and we need to look at every level of violence and safety, and that was the first thing I mentioned tonight was safety. I'm the only candidate in this race that's been endorsed by GPAC and Giffords, and I understand that my opponent is a very passionate advocate, and I respect that immensely. We have very passionate advocates that spend a lot of time in their working groups in Springfield that we look to for their expertise is how do we craft legislation that can actually be implemented? How do we work with the people that are responsible for removing the guns from the people that shouldn't have them, or any sort of weapons that shouldn't have them? How do we go ahead and fund some of the root causes of any level of violence? Is that mental health concerns? Yes, we can do that. We can continue to make sure that the programs that we have in place are being implemented. We can go ahead and we've committed, or I should say the governors put extra energy into talking about funding to better promote and to better utilize red flag laws. I agree with that. We just went through the anniversary of the Pratt shooting, and that should have never happened. That person should have never had a gun.
Candidate Hansen?
Boxenbaum.
Or I mean Candidate Baxenbaum.
Yeah, no worries.
I'll go again.
So my initial background was in gun violence prevention. I used to be in state leadership for Moms Demand Action as liaison with Students Demand Action. Those are two gun violence prevention groups. And I'm very proud to have dedicated many years of my life, going on about 8 years of my life, working for stronger gun laws, calling for an assault weapons ban since before I was even old enough to vote. And what I firmly believe that when it comes to gun violence prevention, what the state needs to focus on now, there's a bill in Springfield right now called Karina's Bill. There are bills like that. We need to work to get guns out of the hands of domestic abusers. We need to work on a bipartisan basis with survivors of gun violence and with gun owners when it comes to safe gun storage, because we need to ensure responsible gun ownership. I come from a family of gun owners, and I can tell from life experience, first and foremost, that we do not have adequate laws that enforce responsible gun ownership. We need to ensure safe storage and getting guns out of the hands of abusers.
And staying with Candidate Baxenbaum, what kind of restrictions, if any, do you believe should be implemented with regard to abortion rights?
None. Absolutely none. And I'm very proud to have said what I said earlier, that I believe that this right should be enshrined into the state constitution. I have close friends and relatives who have been in dire need of access to an abortion. I know so many friends who regularly use different forms of contraception. This is one of the number one issues for my generation. It's one of the number one issues in this district. We need to ensure that that everyone's rights are protected and that women's bodily autonomy is protected under the law. Until that right is guaranteed, we cannot call ourselves equal under the law. And I believe that we all should be. There should not be any restrictions on abortion. Absolutely not.
Okay, Candidate Hansen?
If it's her body, it's her choice. We'll start there. I think there's a lot of energy in legislation that's being proposed and hopefully will advance in the Assembly this year that talks about privacy, data privacy, personal privacy, and a woman's health privacy or anyone's health privacy has to be a priority. And I'm the only candidate in this race that's been endorsed by both Personal PAC and Planned Parenthood. My voting record in one term has justified those endorsements from those groups and will continue to be on the cutting edge of what I believe. I don't think we're playing catch up. I think our state is doing the right things the right way to protect those privacy choices and making sure that we stay out of that government stays out of people's bodies. And we can protect those that do make those choices, and we can go ahead and do more, and a constitutional amendment may be an option. But that's also very complicated. I know that we're exploring that, and there is a working group that is actively exploring that, and we will see if that makes it in through the Assembly this year.
Okay. Candidate Hansen, do you believe there should be any legislation furthering LGBTQ rights?
Yes, we're an inclusive state, and we protect everyone. We protect those who are the most vulnerable, or probably the most under scrutiny or attack, and there are different elements of your question that are kind of laced in a lot of different bills and a lot of different legislation that's out there. Right now is when bills are being filed and legislation is being crafted. And it is complicated, and I trust on my colleagues that have operated in this space to present the legislation that has probably the most impact and that may be filling in the gaps. We know our state welcomes all, but we know we can do more work, and we'll continue to do it. And I'm also, I will say that I've been endorsed by Equality Illinois and Citizens Action Illinois, and they're certainly champions for LGBTQ rights.
Candidate Baxenbaum?
Now, I have close friends and family who are trans, and it's a terrifying time for them right now. Violence against the LGBTQ community has always been sky high, and it's continuing to rise, even in a state like Illinois. So we need to work to ensure that the trans community is protected under the law. We need to fight back against far-right, inflammatory, transphobic politicians who try to use these people as political pawns. On top of that, access to insurance coverage for essential gender-affirming care is not provided in a way that is affordable for so many in the trans community. We need to work to reduce violence and discrimination against the trans community. We need to work to actually put it not just talking the talk, but we need to walk the walk when it comes to actually including the trans community and making sure that they are protected under the law and that they have the same rights as all of us and the same access to the same resources that we all do.
Okay. Next question, staying with candidate Baxenbaum. What reforms to Medicaid would you support to expand in-home care for the elderly and improvements to nursing and long-term care facilities?
Absolutely. There are, for me personally, I'm reminded of how this is another area where the state of Illinois has a serious pipeline problem. One, the benefits that are provided to caregivers is not enough. The pay is not enough. And then for those who are beyond, those who go into healthcare as a profession are dealing with the rising cost of getting a degree in that field. We need to expand existing grants when it comes to those who are trying to get a degree in the healthcare field. It's not adequate enough. We need to work to honestly have some form of loan forgiveness, student loan forgiveness, and ensure that it's economically feasible to work in healthcare, that you can make a living wage, that you can afford to retire, that you can afford the degrees necessary to work in there. So that's my belief.
Okay, candidate Hansen?
I agree with the governor in that he proposed $104 million for a new program that will increase access and service to almost it'll be upwards of 50,000 seniors, but probably closer to 70,000 seniors. We are here, the district does include Kendall County, but here in Kane County, we are it. That trend that you hear coming, that our aging population is outgrowing our younger population is true. It's not a maybe someday, it's here. We're the first of the collars that can actually say that. We can use that based on census data from 2020. Here in this area alone, we have a rapidly growing senior population, and that will always be a priority of mine and in my budgetary requests, and also incentivizing people to join the industry and to make that a career profession. And we know that that career profession is not going to go away. As that population grows, we're going to need more of those professionals, and we'll need a lot of them in a hurry. There are also bills being floated around, and I say that casually because there are ways to incentivize them just by increasing their pay, and can't wait to get back to work.
Okay, and this is the last question I have for you. And again, we'll start with candidate Hansen. Do you believe there is rampant political corruption in Illinois? And if so, what should be done to stop it?
Well, the answer to the question is no, but there's always going to be people that find loopholes in anything, in any set of rules that are out there. I think rampant corruption, I think that the answer is no to that. Do I think we can do more? Yeah. You want to keep a close eye on who's doing what, and one thing that we've done, and I realize some of the things that maybe led to that question, well, they're no longer here, and they're in big trouble. And one of the things that we've done is we do have a new legislative inspector general who is a former federal judge, and he kind of means business. And I think that both parties would agree that he's the right person to keep an eye on all of us in Springfield. You said political corruption. I mean, there's a lot of different units of government. I don't know what other places will do. It's not a hard look up to see that when I was in the Kane County Board, I called out our county board chair for a very oddly timed contribution he took right in the face of a big vote that was coming for the entire county. So I've called that out when I've seen it.
Candidate Boxenbaum.
I don't believe that it's rampant with corruption, but I still believe that we need to take steps to improve the transparency and help actually increase the public's faith in our elected officials. I do not believe that somebody should be speaker for longer than a decade. I personally believe that we need to have term limits, not just for leadership, but term limits for membership. We also need to reduce the revolving doors between legislators and lobbyists. I think that we need to increase the waiting period in which somebody can go from being a state representative to being a lobbyist. We need to crack down on the amount of money that's in our politics. The fact that corporations can write blank checks for so many politicians is not acceptable, and it muddles overall our vote. It muddles the impact of the average voter. On top of that, looking at our districts, our districts are, it's not like Alabama, but we do have a measure of gerrymandering in this area. Certainly this district is definitely gerrymandered, and I believe that we need an independent redistricting system that puts politicians out of that decision.
Okay, and now we're going to move into closing statements, and since candidate Boxenbaum gave the first opening, I'm going to let candidate Hansen give the first closing. So you have 1 minute for closing.
Thank you again. I'm looking forward to earning your votes, and hopefully you will spread the word too about the upcoming election and to earn your faith to represent all of us in the 83rd District. Illinois is on such a positive track, and I use that intentionally as I am a professional railroader. I've been one for 20 years, and one of the things that was mentioned earlier is our transit needs. There are budgetary considerations that were never on our radar. That includes the fiscal cliff that our transportation network is going to see. Having experts in different areas in Springfield is one of the reasons that makes that assembly great. And I'm the first railroader in 204 years to be down there. And in a time where transit and public transportation is such a challenge, it means a lot to everyone. And it's a gift that we were given to us in the Eisenhower administration that we need to modernize now. We have so many needs when it comes to education, to our seniors, to our disabled, that need to be considered in that budget too, that bringing resources back to where they're needed is absolutely the biggest priority.
Thank you. Candidate Boxenbaum, you get the final word.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you all again for being here. I'm very proud of the work that I've done. I'm very proud that I've knocked almost 17,000 doors. My goal is to be at about 20,000 doors knocked before the primary. This district, we really need a full-time representative. We need active Democratic leadership that really does fight day in and day out for this community, regardless of political leanings. And we need somebody who recognizes that the needs in St. Charles are different than the needs in Yorkville, for example. And we need somebody who has that experience working with and for elected officials, knowing how to truly be active in the community and advocate every single day. Something that I hope all of you ask for all the candidates on your ballot. One question, not just why should I vote for you, but how will you advocate for me? And we need an advocate. We need advocates in office. And I'm very proud to be a longtime advocate for my community. So thank you very much. And I hope all of you vote, and I hope to earn your vote on March 19th. Thank you.
All right, and I want to thank the candidates. And now we're going to take a 5-minute break before we begin the next session. So thank you.
So, center that he's a Democrat. Just like, my head was like a bobble gum listening to this. I mean, it's just like, no.
If everyone could take their seats.
So when she negotiated with Exxon and Mobil, was that for the oil rights in?
We're going to get started if everyone can find their seat. How do I make this louder?
Oh, I don't know how. I don't know.
Controlling the volume. Thank you. Can our community members please take their seats so we can get started?
Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Shook your hand already. I was a good little boy right when you came in.
I have to take my coat. They said I couldn't put it anywhere, so.
They wouldn't leave it? You just put it right here. Just put it right here. Just
If you want to keep talking, please bring it out into the hall so we can get started.
Dr. Kent, you get a haircut? It looks nice.
Thank you. I got most of them cut. No, I saw a picture of myself and I said, it's time.
Hello?
I have two products. I have,
We're going to get started if everybody can find their seat.
and when neither product works,
Is that better?
it's time to get a haircut.
It's time to go.
Hey guys, I got the gavel. I got the
Oh,
best seat.
jeez. Louder. You need to like slam
Look
it
out.
down.
Excuse me, would you please take your seats so we can begin?
Nicely done. And if you do want to keep talking, you can, but please take it out into the hall. Okay. So we welcome you back to tonight's candidates forum, and we're now going to hear from the Republican candidates for the 11th Representative District in Congress. And we have three candidates this evening. We have Jerry Evans, Susan Hathaway Altman, and Kent Mercado. So thank you for coming. As we did before, each of the candidates will have 1 minute for an opening statement, and we'll do that alphabetically. Then we'll get into our question and answer period, and then we'll have closing statements from the candidates. So we're going to begin with opening statements from candidate Evans. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jerry Evans. Just wanted to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum. I am a husband, a father, a small business owner, as well as an educator. And I believe in the hope and the promise of America. And I want to help make the 11th Congressional District one of the best places to raise a family, start a business, and for people to experience their dreams. I want to make sure that we're fighting to secure our southern border to stop illegal immigration and the human trafficking that is also happening at the southern border. I want to fight to go ahead and lower inflation and stand for a free economy where everyone has an opportunity to succeed. I also want to make sure that I'm fighting for educational opportunity for students and families, as well as making sure that money is following students and not systems. I've been very thankful to be endorsed by a number of leaders like former Chief Justice of the Illinois Supreme Court, Bob Thomas, as well as Senator Craig Wilcox, former Bolingbrook Mayor Roger Clare, and Naperville City Council Member Josh McBroom. It's an honor to be here. It'd be an honor to have your vote. We've been very thankful to have raised over $200,000 in the first 3.5 months of our campaign to have a good foundation. Thank you again.
Okay, and candidate Hathaway Altman, your opening statement.
Well, thank you. Thanks, League of Women Voters. I appreciate being here and having this great opportunity to speak. I'm a respected business leader for over 32 years in corporate America. I'm a chief sales and strategy officer for a large software company and a small business owner as well as an owner of a nonprofit. And I love this United States of America, and I love the Constitution, and I believe that our Constitution protects our citizens of the United States. It holds us close and it protects us. And we need to abide by our Constitution and protect our Constitution. So that's why I'm running, to deliver change in 3 major areas: border security, academic excellence, and a robust economy. I have lots of significant endorsements from District 11 policymakers like Senators Don DeWitt, Dave Severson, and Chris Lawson, the treasurer of Kane County. And I'm a committeeman in Western Kane County. I do a lot of community work, such as working with seniors in long-term care facilities. Thank you.
Okay, Candidate Mercado, your opening statement, please.
I'm Dr. Kent Mercado. I'm a physician, an attorney. I'm a humanitarian, a father, a husband, and a businessman. I've been blessed to have served the 11th District for over 30 years in many, many different capacities. I also work in a lot of first response activities, particularly in natural disasters. I was able to get funds and beds to 1,000 hospital beds for Katrina. I personally performed amputations as a surgeon in Katrina, and I've also had an opportunity to donate $10 million worth of supplies for Pakistan. My big goal is to focus on kitchen table issues, cost of living, education, and safety. That is what I'm focused on. I'm not worried about some of the polarizing issues whatsoever. I think that there's a lot in this area, in this district. It's a swing district, and I do believe there's plenty of people that would prefer somebody who can go ahead and listen.
Okay, now we're going to move into our question and answers. Excuse me. And we're going to start with candidate Hathaway Altman. And this first question has several parts, so I'll try to break it up for you. But they want to know, what's your position on additional military aid to Ukraine and Israel? And the first question is, should military aid to these countries be considered separately or together?
Well, thank you. Okay, well, the first piece is that obviously we would not be in the situation that we're in if we had a strong federal government. So that is one of the reasons that I am stepping up here to actually go to Congress and to be one of the very strong leaders in Congress that can focus on peace, because that is what we are missing. We focus on peace by doing the things that I do every day in business, and that is really focus on policies that enact change with money, right? With policies around tariffs and sanctions and all of those things, so that the bad actors don't bubble to the top. So now we've got 3 bad actors: Russia, Israel, we've got, Russia, Ukraine, and Iran. Russia, Iran, and China, excuse me. As far as the position to military aid in Israel and Ukraine, they should be separate. I feel that there's a lot of unaccountable dollars to Ukraine. Yes, we should provide at some point, but we need to focus on the U.S. first, and on Israel, we definitely need to support our ally, and as I said, it would be separate.
Okay, and next, candidate Mercado, same question. What's your position on additional military aid to Ukraine and Israel, and should these countries be considered separately or together?
Well, I understand the need for global peace and stability and the need to help our allies. I do believe that you can have military aid, but only old equipment and other things along those lines. I don't want to give any money to particularly the Ukraine, where we don't even know where much of those funds that we had sent. They only made, their gross national product is $60 billion. We just sent them over $100 billion. That's more than their national budget. Anything that should be done separately, and very, very carefully. I do support Israel, and I do believe that they need to defend themselves, but I don't believe that anything other than military aid should be given.
Okay, Candidate Evans?
Thank you. First off, I really believe we need to have a strong national defense and have a peace through strength philosophy with our national defense. And the lack of that during this current Joe Biden administration obviously invigorated Vladimir Putin and the Russians to invade Ukraine, and that's been very, very sad. I believe that specific bills for aid to different countries should be considered separately. First off, Israel has the right to exist. Israel has the right to defend itself. Hamas is a terrorist organization that kills innocent people over and over and over again. And so I support Israel and giving aid to Israel to make sure that they survive their plight. In addition to that, I also would say we do not want Russia to take over Ukraine. And obviously, we need to be a good partner supporting Ukraine. But I would also agree with Speaker Michael Johnson that because of how much we've already given Ukraine and the lack of accountability, we should not give any more aid until we secure our southern border, because that is a significant humanitarian crisis happening right now.
Okay. Now we're going to move to the next question and begin with candidate Mercado. What should the federal government policy be regarding abortion? What position regarding abortion, if any, should be codified at the federal level?
I believe that it is, after Dobbs, it went back to the states. So my position is very clear that I would not support any federal legislation regarding codifying anything for abortion, nor would I do anything on a federal level to limit and cap an abortion.
Okay. Candidate Evans?
Yeah, first off, I want to let you know that I was very, very happy that the Dobbs decision in the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, because I believe that Roe versus Wade was a decision based upon judicial activism. I believe that Dobbs got it right. It also returned the decision back to the states. I, of course, am running for federal office. And so I think what I'd be focusing on is, first off, I think we need to end taxpayer-funded abortion so that people are not paying for abortions against their conscience. I believe that we need to make sure that we have mandated child support for mothers who are pregnant with a child. And so if there's a man who has gotten a woman pregnant, I believe that that man should be paying child support right away, because obviously that would be very important. In addition to that, I would care tremendously about making sure we have better funding for pregnancy centers to help women who are in need going through their time of pregnancy, especially if they don't have a family around them to help them.
Okay, candidate Hathaway Altman.
Thank you. It's where it belongs now as far as with the states. And I've never changed my position on that. You can go back 2 years and, hear other candidate forums. I've always felt that it's not an enumerated right in our Constitution, in the 10th Amendment, and it belongs, that decision and many others belong with the states. I believe in a small government. Having said that, I do believe that if there's a Planned Parenthood that is still being funded when I get into office, what I'd like to see from the Planned Parenthood is not just information about abortion options. I would also like to see information about options of having an adoption and other health care, like contraceptive and morning after pill. I would like to see all of that through a pregnancy type model, pregnancy center type model inside of that Planned Parenthood. And I'm a huge advocate for women. I believe in medical freedom, but I am very pro-life, so I want to make that very clear.
Okay. Candidate Evans, this question's for you. Do you agree with the Republican Party's position on revoking the Affordable Care Act on grounds that it interferes with individual health care decisions?
What I would say is that we need to make sure that we have good healthcare access here in America. I think that's very, very important. And I think also we should make sure that we are protecting pre-existing conditions and protecting those people who are having a difficult time. I myself have been through a very, very difficult time at certain points in my life in terms of health. And I know what it's like to be down and out and need help when it comes to your health and need help from the community around you. And what I would say is that I do not know all the specifics regarding that specific action right there, but what I would say is that, and I think that when it comes to to when it comes to, let's say, the abortion issue or other things like that. I think, again, this decision, the decision by the Dobbs decision was rightfully decided, put back to the states. And I think when it comes to abortion issues, I'm going to be focusing on the policies that I mentioned before, which is ending taxpayer-funded abortion, as well as making sure we're helping mothers who are pregnant and making sure we get that mandated child support for pregnant mothers.
Okay, candidate Hathaway Altman.
Well, I have a very capitalist view on healthcare. I don't feel that the healthcare should be, other than, and I'll explain that in a second, those that truly need it. Healthcare should be provided by companies, and they should be at certain standards, and each company should have their own right as far as what is extra that they can offer, right? So that is a very sound strategy. And then as far as veterans, senior citizens, people with very bad medical problems that can't work, folks that have some mental disabilities, they should all be protected by our current Medicaid, Medicare system, and we should continue to provide all of the resources there so that they are protected under those actual policies.
Okay.
Would you be so kind to repeat the question?
Sure. Do you agree with the Republican Party's position that the Affordable Care Act should be revoked because it interferes with individual health care decisions?
I do not believe that you can revoke the Affordable Care Act. It is very, 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 it's now an entitlement. And there are many problems that I have with the Affordable Care Act, but you need to keep it and you need to work on the aspects that are good and then eliminate some that are bad. One of the things you need to do is offer across-the-line state options, because some states do this very well. Most states don't, but you can follow the lead of the examples and work to repair it and help it. I'm a subject matter expert on this. I've actually met with and written policy specifically on the Affordable Care Act and how to improve and embellish it on both the state and the federal level. This is something that I'm very familiar with, and I will make sure that we get the system working well. In 2010, 80% of the doctors were independent. By 2017, over 80% of the doctors were employed physicians. It has completely changed. You cannot go back to the old system.
Okay. Next question, and we're going to begin with candidate Hathaway Altman. Immigration issues have clearly reached a crisis level. If you ask to be part of a congressional team to design a comprehensive plan to deal with immigration, what components would you support in a plan?
Well, the first thing we need to do is focus on border security. So we absolutely need to address what's going on at the border, the southern border, but also our northern border, also as it relates to cargo ships coming into our ports and et cetera. So there's a lot of things that we need to address because it is causing a lot of issues in the United States right now that are not positive. So the first thing that I would do is go back to the laws that are currently on the books for immigration, and I would say, let's start enforcing those laws. The other is to pause what's going on at the border. Right now, we have over 11 million new people that have come into the border right now. We need to take a check of who's here. We need to vet the people that are here. We need to provide those that are staying with that are not criminals or have any other issues that we vet with the right to work. And then we have to take the others that are criminals and et cetera, and we need to send them back.
Okay, candidate Mercado.
The first thing you need to do is close the border. It's an analogy would be if a tub was overflowing and you would take a little water bottle and just try to go ahead and put that into the sink, instead of going in, turning off the faucet. That's the first thing you need to do. I have met with, and so has Susan, met with many migrants that have come in and they are being sold a false bill of goods, particularly when it comes to amnesty. Only about 5 or 10% of the people actually qualify for amnesty, and they are given a piece of paper to say, come back in 6 years to have your hearing. As far as things go, you have to enforce the rules that are currently in place. I like the Remain in Mexico policy. We have to support ending chain migration. We got to support eliminating visa lotteries, and I absolutely support mandatory e-verification. Thank you.
Okay, Candidate Evans?
It is essential that we have a secure southern border, because not only is it important that we have a working and comprehensive immigration system, it's extremely important that we stop the human trafficking of little boys and girls at the southern border. And I'm very passionate about stopping that. We also need to make sure we're stopping the influx of illegal drugs like fentanyl, which is killing so many thousands of our young people every year in our nation. So first off, I would say we need to make sure we build the border wall, we end catch and release. We need to make sure we're properly enforcing current immigration laws. I would support a remain in the first safe country or remain in Mexico policy for those who want to come across the border illegally, that they can't just go ahead and come across the border illegally and cut in line. There are so many people in other nations who are even being persecuted and are in difficult positions who really need asylum. And the line is being cut in because of people coming across the border illegally and committing a crime by doing that. And so I really believe that we need to make sure that we're stopping that, and then making sure we just have a fair system and that we're enforcing laws, especially when it comes to asylum laws.
Okay, next question, we're going to begin with candidate Mercado. What is your position on federal legislation to address gun violence in the United States?
I don't support federal overall overreaching laws. I'm a Second Amendment rights person. I personally have a very large set of weapons that are inherited, that were military-grade equipment. It is at the state level, and it should be, just like abortion and some of the other things have to be done at a state level. There's a difference between the 10th Amendment said that you have to apply only a few things are actually federal, only 5 or 6, the rest are state. And I very much don't agree with some of the things that are gone. I've worked with a number of different people in trying to plan and get legislation on a state level to help things to secure safety and not punish the good gun ownerships people.
Okay, Candidate Evans.
Thank you. What I would say is that I really do believe in the Second Amendment. I believe the Second Amendment of our Constitution is essential for a free and safe society. And so I think what we need to be focusing on right now to go ahead and reduce violence is, first off, we need to go ahead and address mental health. Make sure we have more resources to address mental health. Making sure that this is given the proper focus, because there are so many people who are struggling that really do need help, and they don't have a community around them or a family around them to go and help them. So I think we need to address that and put much more funding and help behind that issue. Secondly, I really believe we need to be focusing on much more funding for school safety. Making sure we have things like, police officers can be in schools, or for bulletproof glass, locks on doors in classrooms, a single point of entry. There are a number of school shootings or mass shootings that never would have happened if we would have actually done a better job at addressing mental health and done a better job at addressing school safety. And I really need to be focusing in that direction.
Okay, and Candidate Hathaway Altman.
Yes, I'm a constitutionalist, and as I said before, I stand up for our Constitution, and I'm fully in support of our Second Amendment, and no more federal laws, no federal laws. I agree that mental health is a huge crisis in this country. I was on a board called the Mental Health Association of Greater Chicago for several years, and it was a crisis prevention for suicide, as well as we would go into schools and had funding privately and sometimes locally in local government for programs around bullying and other programs that really helped. And I believe in bolstering that, because being on the board, I realized how underfunded these programs are. So instead, we need to invest in more mental health care, and we definitely need to put bad actors in jail. And I think that it's really put us back here in Illinois in the Safety Act. We need to have a tough on crime approach for violent offenders and a restorative justice approach for those offending for the first time that are not violent.
Okay. Next question, candidate Evans. This one goes to the environment. What additional tax incentives and/or regulations would you support to reduce the use of fossil fuels that contribute to climate change? Do you share the sense of urgency about climate change that many young and old Americans are feeling?
Thank you. I think the first thing that I would say is we need to make sure that we are focusing on getting cleaner air and cleaner water. I don't know why anyone would be against things like that. I don't know why anyone would be against making sure we have a healthier environment for people to thrive and to live in the future. What I would suggest, though, is that I actually really believe that America needs to focus on being energy independent. Now, that may seem counterintuitive, but back during the previous presidential administration before Joe Biden, we were actually getting better and better grades during certain environmental metrics as we were becoming more energy independent. And again, it seems counterintuitive, but that's actually what was happening. And so we need to be focusing on opening the Keystone Pipeline. We need to be focusing on making sure we are utilizing federal leases on government land so that we can go ahead and get natural gas and other fuels. Because obviously we produce, but also a lot of times we refine those in a cleaner fashion than other countries do. And we need to be focusing on, again, ultimately an all of the above approach so that as new technology comes out, that we are making sure to move forward and do that in a responsible way, but again, not doing that in a far too quick way like the Green New Deal.
Okay. Candidate Hathaway Altman.
Yes, we've lost a lot in the past 3 years as far as, our economy, inflation, and how it's hurt the middle class and low income in this country. And the number one reason is because we have to get back to a strategy that embraces fossil fuel, and we have to become energy independent and net exporters of energy to actually get back to a position where we are financially secure and not 34 billion plus trillion rather in debt. And frankly, I'm a very big proponent of ecology. I love the earth. I love, going to the beaches and the beautiful countryside. And so I think we all agree that we want to save the earth. We need to combine strategies. We need to make sure that the sustainability strategies that we're using work and capitalize on the ones that work. And when the technology is there, then we go full throttle to that strategy instead of, really crippling our economy as a result.
Okay, Candidate Mercado.
No, I believe that we have an impact on the environment with the man-made aspect, but certainly not at the rate that we have been told at all. I was told that by 2012, both New York and Miami would be underwater. I am the medical guardian for my adult learning disabled cousin who lives down in Florida, and we were on the beach just last month. There was not off of the second floor. I realized that we have to be good to the earth and be very helpful. We are the only country that is part of the Paris Accord that actually lowered our emissions. We are doing better than any other country. We need to work on this as in a global capacity because you have China and India that are polluting at 10, 20, 100 times more than what we are. Of course that's going to have an effect, but you can't cripple us in the meantime to go ahead and do that. And I do want to make a transition, but we have to do that when we have sustainable energy. We need to have the proper type of battery and proper type of devices that can store the energy so that we're not caught.
Okay. Next question, we're going to begin with candidate Hathaway Altman. What legislation or policies do you support to address social and racial injustice in the United States?
That's a really big topic for me. I'm a huge community activist, and I said before, I do a lot of work. I have my own nonprofit company, and we focus on ensuring that children have the right nutrition and food, and they're not being food deprived. So I do a lot of work with, these groups, whether it's social, and race. So I want to say that I think that, as it relates to funding, which I think is your question, I believe very much in our system of NGOs in this country. I think that the nonprofits, NGOs, whether it's in the United States or outside of the United States, do a great job of providing that type of assistance. And I'm a huge advocate to fund those programs so that we could provide more help to those needed in those socioeconomic classes.
Okay, Candidate Mercado.
Yeah, I've actually written on DEI before and written policies and things for some corporations and some state agencies as well. There's a misnomer because when they want to talk about diversity and inclusion and equity, they forget that you have to have diversity of opinion as well. Being a minority myself, I understand how things are. I don't believe that it is inherent or anything else that you're going to have something against. I think it's work and hard work and being driven. And that's how it works. You need to go ahead and you have to foster independence. You have to foster the idea of not having victims. You need to go ahead and make these people stronger. You need to believe in yourself. You need to have the support of your family and your community, and you need a champion for your cause. Some things are fine to help people and be that champion, and I understand that there are some aspects of it that are fine. But most of the people that I've worked with in the DEI industry, they are in a big company and they've been kicked out, or they do nothing. They just had the little box that the company checked and said, oh, we have a DEI person.
Okay, Candidate Evans.
So this issue matters tremendously to me. My wife, Lisa, is half Taiwanese, so some would say we have an interracial marriage. My brother, Sean, is actually black, and I love when different ethnicities come together. And, sometimes we call it a race issue. I believe we're all one race. We're the human race. And I say different ethnicities often. But I believe we need to come together. And I would agree with Martin Luther King Jr., who had the idea and the thought that we should be judged by the content of our character, not by the color of our skin or anything else like that. And so when it comes to legislation at the federal level, I'm going to be focusing on the philosophy of making sure everyone has an equal opportunity to go ahead and succeed and move forward in life. But again, we're going to do that with the philosophy of we're not prioritizing someone inappropriately or discriminating against them because of the color of their skin or gender or something like that. But instead, we're going to be focusing on empowering them and reminding people that they are created with infinite value before God. But again, this issue is very, very important to me. I'm very, very passionate about it, and I do care about addressing that in Congress.
Okay. Candidate Mercado, new question. The national debt has reached a record $34 trillion, with the interest on the debt now becoming the single largest budget expenditure. If you favor raising taxes to reduce this debt, what type of tax increase would you support? If you favor cutting spending to reduce the debt, what departments or programs would you cut?
Well, I'm not in favor of increasing taxes. I think that there are other ways that you can do it. I think that if you go and do basically a Lean Six Sigma or any of these other programs where you cut the waste, fraud, abuse, duplication of services, you can find funds to help do this. You need to go ahead, and you cannot spend money that you do not have. That is the reason why we're in an inflation cycle right now. They would go ahead, and both parties are bad at this because they will go ahead and spend money. And their goal of compromise is you get everything that you want, and as long as I get everything that I want. That's not compromise. When you're negotiating and you're doing that, you have to go ahead and have things that are set in doing that. And every department has room to be reduced. There's not a specific department that I would eliminate. I would just make sure that everything would be done, that you don't have the duplication of services and the waste and the fraud and the abuse.
Okay, Candidate Evans.
First off, I want to let you know the answer is not higher taxation. And just because taxes might be raised does not always indicate higher revenue for the government all the time. And so instead, I believe the answer is not raising taxes, but even lowering taxes in some ways. But I think what's important is that we need to be wise with our discretionary spending and continue to cut discretionary spending, cutting waste and fraud, and making sure that we're not using it irresponsibly. I'm a small business owner. And I understand that if I don't have good spending, then I will go out of business and all my employees could lose their jobs. And I'm not okay with that. And I'm going to bring a common sense mentality to U.S. Congress to go ahead and fight for a balanced budget And I would even support a balanced budget constitutional amendment. In addition to that, we also have to reform entitlements, but I want to be very clear here. We need to make sure that especially the elderly who need their Social Security payments and the sick who need their Medicare help, of course, we want to make sure that they still retain those things. Thank you.
Candidate Hathaway Altman.
Thanks. Well, I've, worked 32 years in corporate America. Like I said, I don't think my mic's working. And I've learned a lot. So lowering taxes is the issue that I would address, and that would be because lowering taxes would provide incentives for businesses and more jobs in the 11th district. And with more jobs, you get more of a tax base. So raising taxes would just hurt the middle class and the low income, but especially the middle class. And I would look for discretionary cuts, 15% or so across the board now in all areas of government, with the exception of some, like the military, which needs to be bolstered, as well as Social Security and other Medicaid, Medicare entitlement programs. I don't believe that there's a better solution than this with the combination. Right now, I work on 10 to $50 million projects. I used to work on 500 million and above, and I always met my budget. And as far as the constitutional amendment, oh, sorry, Ronald Reagan couldn't pass one. I don't think we can pass a constitutional amendment, although, that would be nice.
Okay. Next question. We begin with candidate Evans. Do you support increasing foreign aid to countries whose citizens are fleeing to the United States because of drug cartels, poverty, and human rights abuses?
What I would say is, obviously it's a broad question. We need to be considering our foreign policy on a state-by-state, specifically a foreign state-by-foreign state issue. And I don't think it would be wise for me to comment on something broadly as a whole. But what I would say is this, is that we do know, of course, that there are some countries who are overrun because of drug cartels or human trafficking cartels, or there are people who are dealing with political persecution or religious persecution. And of course, I think America is a beacon of freedom to the world. But I think what we need to be focusing on doing, number one, in all honesty, is focusing on securing our southern border and making sure we have a comprehensive immigration system that actually works, where people are not cutting across the southern border illegally and cutting in line of people in other nations who are waiting and doing that the right way. And so I'm really focused on securing the southern border, and we should deal with that question on a state or foreign state by foreign state issue or basis.
Candidate Hathaway Altman.
I believe in Americans first. I mean, right now, we have a crisis here in the United States on many levels, especially economically, and we have to concentrate on the US of A. I do believe that, this migrant crisis, we're like a magnet to migrants, and we're providing them with the false narrative of coming here and just having this great life. And it's not fair to them. We have NGOs, we have, we've got the UN, we've got others, major groups providing lots of money, billions, offering passage to the United States through our wide open southern border. And again, that's not fair to them. But it's also not fair to our communities to have buses of migrants come into the 11th district when we're not prepared and we don't have the budget for it as well. But the only people and the only place that this can be solved is federally.
Okay, candidate Mercado.
Well, I believe that this is an issue that would be better addressed more on the United Nations level, instead of having the United States, as we always do, pay more than our fair share. I would say that when they were worried about China and having to go ahead and how you have different building blocks and supply chain things, they were talking about moving some of these away from China, and they were saying, well, maybe we can move it to Malaysia or Vietnam. If you want to do that and help the economies, maybe you can go ahead and bring that supply chain to Central America and Mexico, so you can bring back the jobs there so that they don't have to come here. And then you can work on aspects. Because for us to keep on indiscriminately giving money, that part of the reason that they're having trouble is that they're dealing with bad actors, bad government, and things. And how are we going to verify that that money, even if we send it, is going to be used for the appropriate purposes?
Okay, next question. Candidate Hathaway Altman. What federally funded policies could be implemented to improve or reform education for K through 12?
I believe that tax dollars should follow the child. So in the 11th district, for example, we pay a lot of taxes to schools, and our rate in Illinois of literacy in math, English, language arts, and reading is 37% when a child graduates high school. So we have to improve that, and the way we can do that is to create competition among the schools. And I also believe that, we have to focus on academic excellence. There are many countries passing us up, China and others, many other countries, Japan, passing us up every day in academics. We need to really make sure that we focus, and I do believe the competitive nature of school choice would create that environment.
Candidate Mercado.
Repeat the question one more time.
Pardon me?
Please repeat the question one more time. You said on federal dollars or federal?
What federally funded policies could be implemented to improve or reform K through 12 education?
Well, one of the things that you can do as far as not necessarily only K through 12, but we need to have a strong foundation for education. And there are many different aspects that we can do. If we're going to be competitive in the world market, we have to go ahead and compete with them at similar levels. Many people or many post degrees they're done at 16 years old and they can start medical school at 16. We have to wait until we're almost 22 or 24. And if we're going to do that, many of the other degrees are only 4-year degrees. As far as going back, I feel that you need to have opportunities and apprenticeship programs and bringing back vocational training into the school systems. That's something that's very important. I believe in school choice. I believe in charter schools. I believe in a lot of different things. And I do agree with some of the other candidates that you can have the monies follow the child. Those are some of the things that I would prefer to do.
Okay, Candidate Evans.
Thank you. I believe that education should be centered on the student, and it should be centered as well on the parent who is over that student. And so first off, I really believe that we need to make sure that money is following students and not systems, and we need to be empowering school choice. And there are so many people, whether they be in middle-class families, especially those who might be in poorer backgrounds, where they're in a single-family home and they're just struggling to put food on the table, and they're in an area where their school is not succeeding, and they're trying to find a way out to go ahead and succeed and do better than the previous generation and their family. And I want to let you know that I think it's very, very important that we empower those children, especially in poor backgrounds, to have other opportunities, whether it be a charter school or some other private school or something else like that. As well as we need to be focusing on making sure that we are teaching valuable knowledge and skills like math, reading, or art, keeping political indoctrination or other social indoctrination viewpoints out of the public school system, because I know sometimes the Department of Education will actually tie funding to certain schools if the school doesn't follow the Department of Education exactly the way they want with that political viewpoint. Thank you.
Next question, Candidate Hathaway Altman. How do you plan on working with the Democratic congressional members to legislate productively?
Thank you. Well, I think that, that's my unique skill as it relates to my opponents here today on this table and in this room. And it's all around the skills that I have collected over 32 years of being in business, both with very large companies as well as I'm with a software firm that's, we are very competitive and constantly have to reinvent ourselves every day. And within those skills are negotiation skills, collaboration. Every day I'm getting people on my side to make decisions that maybe they wouldn't want to make. So it's the art of the sale, as they say. I do feel that we need unity in this country. That's why I stepped up to run for office because I feel that we are too polarized and that we do need to work together effectively to pass the right legislation, not for us and, like, I'm not doing this for myself. Don't want power, money, or fame. I'm doing it for all of you. And we need to represent our constituents and what they say, not what we feel.
Okay, Candidate Mercado.
Well, I concur with that we have to represent the constituency that's out there. We have a very diverse community here. I feel that I'm the best qualified regarding this because I've written policy, I've presented it at a state and a federal level, and I've had to work with both parties. Even when you go ahead and you speak with something, and you speak with many of the different people, I was nominated for a presidential appointment in the Department of Health by a Democratic congressman. It was seconded by the or not a second, but endorsed by the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. I was honored by that thing because I know that I can work with that. And I told him, I said, you realize that I'm right-leaning, that I'm, right-leaning. It's like, yeah. Well, this is an issue that has to do with health. And most of the issues that I've met with and I've talked to people, when you go to every single bill is compromised. Not compromised, it's negotiated. You go ahead and you present something there, you have, depending on who's the lead, who has more people, you'll have usually one more, and it has to go through committee first before it's even presented. And you have to negotiate it at that point. Of course I can work with everyone.
Candidate Evans.
First, I think we need to start with two massive things: listening and helping people know that they should be heard. I think so many of us feel it so often, where we just see gridlock in Washington, or we see gridlock in other places in the U.S., and it's really, really difficult for us. And it's difficult for me when things don't get done that we know should get done. And so I really believe focusing on listening and then allowing people to be heard is going to be essential. Making sure we find common ground in our negotiations. And I think that also, in addition to that, I think a lot of times politicians, and career politicians especially, often focus more on serving themselves. They focus more on serving themselves to try to keep their job, and that's not right. And people deserve better. And so I want to go to U.S. Congress and represent this district to serve other people. Even if it's extremely difficult, I want to do that. And I want to make sure that I have strength and resolve to do what's right. Thank you.
Okay. Candidate Mercado, next question. What can Congress do to make campaigns more fair and equitable?
I think they're going to have to change some of the fundraising rules and not allow massive corporate interests to go ahead and sway policy when you have, both Facebook and Google and everybody else contributing $400 or $500 million towards a campaign. I think that definitely sways that. We need to go back to a grassroots ability. I think we have to stop a lot of the excess spending. There's no reason that these campaigns should be $2.5 or $3.5 or $5 million to go ahead and run for an office. Even for a state senator, people spend over $1 million nowadays. That's not what we're supposed to do. You're supposed to be representing your constituents. You have to go ahead and you have to listen and hear what they're saying. They don't want this type of money involved in it. And there has to be some rules and guidelines. You also have to have term limits, and you have to have other things that will stop people from going ahead and doing that. The moment you come in is in 2 weeks after you get in, you have to go ahead and reapply for, to run for the next time. We got to stop that.
Okay, Candidate Evans.
The first thing I want to talk about is free speech, and that may seem like something that may not be something you thought I would necessarily say, but I think we need to talk about free speech. And I think the first thing I would say is that right now, big tech is meddling in our elections and making it difficult for it to be fair. There's censorship that happens with big tech. There's visibility filtering that happens with big tech. And not every candidate is given an equal opportunity when it comes to big tech. And so I think that U.S. Congress needs to address and look at that issue just to make sure that it's not an uneven playing field in an improper way. In addition to that, I actually really think that we need to be focusing on making sure we have things like term limits, but also in addition to that, I think just making sure people still have free speech. People can speak with their mouth, they can speak with their actions, they can speak by doing door knocking for a candidate, but also they can speak by giving financial resources. And of course, I do think it's important that people have the ability to give financial resources and speak that way.
Okay, Candidate Hathaway Altman.
I'll just add, I think that the campaigning process should be looked into. I do believe that it should be fair and equitable, and that we should level the playing field. And what I mean by that is, if you look at different people that are coming from the state that truly love this country, truly love this state, giving them all the same means to be able to campaign and to tell you about themselves, that's very difficult. It takes a lot of time, a lot of money. People like me, a single mom, that it has to work, right? I can't set aside my job. I'm a chief sales officer. They need me, and I need the job. So, it is one of those things that should be looked at, that everybody is on the same level playing field in all aspects.
Okay. And now we're going to end with, we began with Israel, we're going to end with Israel. And it's a two-part question. And one is, do you advocate for a ceasefire on behalf of Israel against Gaza? And two, do you support us sending aid to Gaza?
Good question. I'm glad we're talking about this. First off, like I mentioned earlier, Israel has the right to exist, and Israel has the right to defend itself. Hamas is an evil terrorist organization that continually murders people consistently. And I want to let you know that Israel obviously has the right to not only defend itself, but also go after eliminating Hamas. Hamas uses its own citizens in Gaza as political pawns. There were times where during this conflict where refugees wanted to get out of certain areas of Gaza and get to safety, and Hamas actually would not let them. Hamas is evil. And when Hamas gets an opportunity to go ahead and get aid dollars, you know what they do? They don't use it for their citizens. They use it for more either weapons of warfare or opportunities to try to murder innocent Israeli civilians. And so I believe we need to stand with Israel as they standing up against Hamas. Thank you.
Okay, Candidate Hathaway Altman.
My general answer is we need peace through strength. I don't believe in wars. I don't want anyone to die, and it's unnecessary. This administration has put the United States in a very weak position, and the bad actors have raised up, and they are, taking over, and it's not right. We've emboldened them with money. We've emboldened them with power, and now we're in conflict, some regional, some local, and some, and it may be, another World War III before you know it. But as far as the ceasefire is concerned and aid to Gaza, this is a humanitarian crisis on both sides. I was talking to Naperville City Council a few nights ago. They wanted a ceasefire resolution for Naperville, and what I said is, this doesn't belong in Naperville. This belongs miles and miles away, thousands of miles away, not here. And just quickly, I would provide aid to anyone that's suffering, that's innocent. I feel the NGOs with mercy ships and et cetera would be able to provide the aid in like the Port of Said in Egypt and other places. And I think...
Okay, I got to cut you off there, but thank you. Candidate Mercado.
It's a two-part question. At some point, I would believe that the war will end, and I'm not calling for a ceasefire at this point. If it continues on for a longer period of time, of course. As of right now, the Palestinians are not being accepted into into Jordan or into Libya or into Egypt, and they've been offered that. They're not following through with that. So there's a lot of things. The Gaza Strip is literally 10 miles wide by about 30 miles long. It is a very small area. They have 2 million people in that region. It's very difficult to do that. The monies that they have received, which were supposed to be for humanitarian aid. By the way, I do not support money for Hamas at all. I do support money and humanitarian aid for the Palestinian people. I also will support funding for some type of rebuilding and infrastructure.
Well, we've covered a lot of subjects, and I want to thank the candidates for doing that and bearing with us. And now we're going to turn into closing statements, and we're going to go in reverse order. So we're going to begin with Candidate Mercado. I remind you, you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
I'm Dr. Kent Mercado, and I'm running for Congress in the 11th District. Thank you again for allowing me to participate in this forum. But I will say that with my background as a physician and an attorney, as a father, as a businessman, as a husband, for almost 32 years, we're going to have our 8th anniversary on February 29. I do believe that I can bring skill sets, knowing that I've already written policy, I've presented policy at a state and a federal level. I've been at hearings where people were arguing back and forth, the cameras go off, and they're buddies. But I can tell you right now that I know that I have the skill set because I've done negotiations, I've written policy, and I know the material well, and I've spent a lot of time talking to thousands of people, listening and hearing what they say, and they want me to focus on kitchen table issues of education, safety, and cost of living. Thank you.
Okay, Candidate Hathaway Altman, your closing statement.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for this forum and so many to get my message out. I'm blessed in so many ways. We're battling for the soul of this country, and I'm going to stand up for all of you and for the United States of America, and we are going to be strong again. And I will say that, there's so much heart in the 11th district. I've been out knocking doors and calling and, doing so many things with all of my campaign people. And I've just met so many of you, and everybody's nice. And I will say that I have a very strong heart. I'm a mother of was a mother of 9 foster children. I adopted one of them. I've got 3 kids of my own that are incredible. And I will tell you that that you need somebody with that heart and soul that cares about you, cares about America, and cares about the 11th district. I'll roll up my sleeves. I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can. I'm going to use all those skills that I have in corporate America to apply to this district and to really turn around the economy and everything that's going on that affects you every day. Thank you.
Okay, and the final word, Candidate Evans, your 1-minute closing.
Yeah, my name is Jerry Evans. I'm a husband, father, small business owner, as well as an educator. And I believe we can make this district one of the best places to live, to grow a family, to start a business, and for people to experience their dreams. And I want to help make that possible. I want to let you know that I want to serve out of a genuine desire to serve, not for myself, but for others. And that's how my wife and I, that's how we live our life. I will fight to make sure that we secure our southern border, a fight for a free economy, fighting for making sure we have good public safety as well as educational opportunity. And I want to let you know that I believe that with the fundraising we've done, we've raised the resources necessary to go ahead and win this district and flip this district. But I know that so many of us just want things to happen in Washington. We want people to stand up and have the resolve to do what's right. I believe I have that. So I'd like to ask you to come join me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And before we conclude, real quickly, I wanted to let you know that we're going to take another 5-minute break, and then we're going to come back for a 3-minute statement by the Democratic candidate, Qasim Rashid. So I hope you'll stay for that, because his opponent, Bill Foster, was unable to attend this evening's forum. So 5 minutes. Thank you, candidates. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Blessings to you. Blessings.
Nice job, Dr. Machado.
Doctor. Thank you.
Okay. And as I said before, we're now going to give candidate Qasim Rashid our attention. He gets 3 minutes to give an outline of his platform for candidacy, and that his opponent, Bill Foster, was unable to attend this evening. So unfortunately, we can't do questions and answers, but we do give him an opportunity to share his views. So candidate Rashid, it's all yours.
Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you to all of you for coming out this evening and participating in our democracy. This is how we strengthen our democracy. So my deepest gratitude to you and to the League of Women Voters of Kane County. My name is Qasim Rashid. I am a Democrat and human rights lawyer running for U.S. Congress here in the 11th District of Illinois. I grew up in this district, and I'm an immigrant to this country. We grew up in the 90s in DuPage County, and like many immigrant families, we went through some hard times. I spent most of my 90s living in Section 8 housing, working since I was 15, relying on food stamps. And I think I began to understand very early on the need for us to have better systems to protect working people. It wasn't until my wife and I got married now almost 17 years ago that she encouraged me to go to law school that I got involved in human rights law and found my true calling. And I've spent the last 15 years working on supporting survivors of domestic and sexual violence, expanding healthcare and education access, working on prison reform, making our streets safer. And now as I run for Congress, it's really on these values, right? I mean, in the 90s, we were home insecure. Housing is even more expensive now. The climate crisis, Al Gore was warning about it in the 2000 election. Last summer, it looked like Armageddon with how orange the sky was. The sun was blocked out. Healthcare was unaffordable. Now, even despite the ACA, 30 million Americans don't have healthcare access. And the list goes on and on. The opioid crisis has resulted in 6 times as many people being killed now than in the 90s. And so we're running on a platform of economic, social, and climate justice. And we're doing a couple things uniquely. I'm the only candidate in this race on the Democratic side that is 100% people funded, because I believe corporations should not be deciding our elections. Ordinary working folks should. I'm the only candidate who is fighting for guaranteed universal health care because it costs half per capita. Every developed country that has guaranteed health care has a longer life expectancy, lower maternal mortality, lower infant mortality. And this is also how we protect abortion choice and access. You know, the current ACA model excludes 30 million Americans and 15 million women from having basic access. This is an atrocity. I'm also the only candidate not funded by Exxon, not funded by Wells Fargo, not funded by the pharma industry. I'm also the only candidate who has fought my entire career to protect disability rights. Our website is QasimRashid.com. That's where we are on social media as well. And as we run this campaign, we have a couple of key principles that we're going to stick to the policies. We're not going to mudsling. I disagree with my opponent, but you'll never hear me badmouth him because I think that's beneath the dignity of politics. We are going to focus on the needs of working people, and we are going to be accessible and available. That's why I made sure that we would be here today. Thank you for your support. I look forward to earning your vote on or before March 19th, and thank you for strengthening our democracy.
I want to thank candidate Rashid and all of the candidates tonight for coming and sharing their views. On behalf of the community, I also want to thank all of you for coming. Our democracy thrives when all of us are engaged. Attending or watching a candidate forum is an excellent way to be empowered and educated, and to join discussions on local issues, and to make your voice heard on Election Day. We hope that each and every one of you will vote and inspire your family, friends, and neighbors to do the same. Early voting began on February 8th at election authorities and on March 4th at permanent polling places as designated by Kane County. To vote by mail, please request a ballot from the Kane County Election Division website. Additional information on how and when to vote can be found at IllinoisVoterGuide.org and the Central Kane County League of Women Voters website and social media. A recording of this forum can be found on the League of Women Voters of Central Kane County website. And again, I want to thank the leagues for putting this together. It was a great event, and I was honored to be a part of it. So thank you and good night.